Gear Talk Radio. You're in to all things music.
Welcome to Music Gear Talk. Discover the tech that inspires the pros and powers today's music industry.
Yeah, this is another episode of Music Gear Talk. My name is Florentino Buenaventura, and we are powered by the mighty Intertalk Radio. Connect to all things music here. And I want to give a shout out to our great sponsors, Pitbull Audio at pitbullaudio.com. They are just an amazing crew. They're, a top reader online, but you could also go to their store here in National City in San Diego. They've got a great showroom there, and take some time to check them out, as well as our good friends over at SIR-USA.com. These folks have been powering the music industry's backline, as well as also their front of house stuff. And if you haven't used them at some point in your career, you probably will. So we want to give a special thanks to those folks. And then we've got a pretty honored here, the man who has pretty much inspired a whole industry, the guy who created the in-ear monitors. Mr. Stephen Ambrose is here with Adele Technology. Stephen, say hello to everybody.
Well, good morning, everyone, and I'm flattered to be here. And Florentino, I did my first NAMM with John Nady in 1976. We shared a small booth, wow. And I had hot rodded his. He was the inventor of the wireless guitar. He had a little black, they call it the Nasty Black, and it was a little pirate FM radio station. And I multiplexed it and made it stereo, and that was what we used for the wireless link for in-ear monitors for the first decade.
Wow, that is awesome, man. So much history. You hear and read about these incredible technologies, but to discover and find out where the heart and soul came from. We chat a little bit before the shows kick off, and I was amazed. I didn't realize that you got started, doing in-ear monitors, before you were born, right? But in 1965, 1965, man. So, we want people to know a bit about the company, about you. Tell us a little bit about, how all this got started. You're 13 years old. You're going to make something that's going to revolutionize the music industry.
Well, it started out very kind of innocent. My dad taught at Peabody and Vanderbilt in Nashville, and he only allowed church music and classical music in the house. And my mom bought me a guitar 2 years. For 2 years, we hid it under the bed, and I was in the closet singing Dylan. And I did some coffee shops, and a producer from Music Row heard me and invited me down for my first recording session. And next door, Johnny Cash was recording, and I didn't even like country music until I snuck into the studio, and I was so young that they didn't just toss me out of my ear; they let me listen to him on the headphones, and I fell in love, and I wanted to hear that way when I was on stage, and I wanted to hear that way in the closet because I couldn't. I was cupping my ear and my mouth with my hands so I could sing loud, low enough that I wouldn't disturb my dad or get caught. And I couldn't hold my guitar and do that. So my mom had bought these they were swim molds. They looked like ear molds, but they weren't custom. And I hollowed them out and I stuck these transistor radio earbuds on them, which sounded horrible until you sealed them in the ear. And then they started to have at least a little bass, okay, the isolation and so forth. And my dad had brought home an old 3M Volensack tape recorder from Vanderbilt that was broken. And I hot rodded the amplifier out of that and put a big 1/4-inch phone jack on it. And that was my in-ear monitors. So Andy Williams signed me, the same year he signed Jimmy Buffett and Ray Stevens, and I went off to Hollywood, and I got to sing with my heroes. I got to sing with Roger McGuinn from the Byrds and Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys. And
oh, yeah.
Stevie Wonder used to get up from the stage and dance around on stage playing harmonica, and fall off the edge of the stage or get dangerously close to it. And everybody in the audience is watching this, and the monitor engineer is screaming into the microphone over the wedges, back up, and everybody in the house can hear him except Stevie.
Yeah, Stevie's into music, right? He's just like raptured in that.
Yeah, and the sound levels on stage were so loud. Okay, I remember some of the tours that I performed in were the average threshold of sound. It was above the threshold of pain most of the time. Okay, yeah. And but anyway, his engineer saw my in-ear monitors and figured this was a way to direct Stevie around the stage and keep him from falling off the edge. And interestingly enough, it was also how to deliver his lines when he's on camera. I ended up giving him his speeches through these in-ear monitors for the Martin Luther King lobby efforts every year that we would do, and was honored to be in the White House Rose Garden when that bill was signed into law.
Wow.
So it's a special day for me, to have been honored to be part of that. But
such incredible history, man. And in fact, that you've probably saved Stevie's life from falling off a stage too wrongly. And, you've given us the gift of music from Stevie all his life. So, hey, man, thank you very much.
Well, Stevie gave you that. I mean, the interesting thing is that when I went down in the studio, I took these impressions of his ears with, this silicone impression material, and I didn't want to waste his time. So I just filled the first ear, and I then right away filled the second ear. And the minute I filled the second ear, he was totally sealed off, and he grabbed my arm and screamed, "Oh my God, I'm blind!" and he wasn't really kidding, because he sees his world acoustically, because he was born blind.
Yeah. And
he had never shut his ears that tight. Okay.
Yeah. And so he's not hearing anything outside. He's just only hearing what he's hearing in the in-ears.
So it was like being blind. And so I quickly hollowed them out and put speakers on them and plugged them in the studio feed. And the drummer kicked the kick drum, and some of the dust that was left from hollowing them, a sound tube out, shot out of the sound tube. Now, that's not audio. That's pneumatic pressure. That's what you pump up your bicycle tires with.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And I was like so terrified that I was going to turn Stevie into Helen Keller overnight. And he grabbed them, and, he loved these things because he could see everywhere there was a microphone. Okay. And I'm cranking the bass down, trying to protect his ears, and he's grabbing it and cranking it back up. And we fought over this for about 10 years on various world tours. But without Stevie Wonder, there wouldn't be in-ear monitors. I can tell you that. He believed in them. And I toured with a lab in the hotel room. I'd set it up every night and tour with him. And I would, make a new pair almost every concert, because the ones I'd given him had broken. So he was very patient, and he believed in it. And then also, introduced me to Diana Ross and just, everybody.
A collection, which started, like I said, started the revolution of industry. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
So now, was this a company at that time, or were you just kind of doing this as just as a contractor out there, just making headphones, or did you already really go, okay, this is going to be a company?
Well, I started doing microphones. Okay, I mean, I had my in-ear invention, but I played guitar, and I was tired of the piezoelectric, Marcus Berry sound, the brittle sound on my guitar and flutes and that sort of thing. So I would make what I called micro mics, which now is something that I think AKG uses that name. And I would take condenser microphone capsules and carve them into a rosewood bezel. They almost look like a pipe. And I made this for Lee Oscar, for War, Herb Albert, made it for, Tom Scott and just saxophone players, harps. I ended up doing almost the whole Musicians Local 47 with these microphones. And that's how I knew that if you sealed a speaker in the ear, the tympanic membrane, the eardrum, is like a microphone. And if you put one of my microphones where your eardrum is in front of my in-ear monitors, it will beat the hell out of it.
Wow.
So I toured until, the 90s doing this, and I knew it was causing hearing loss. And I had a patent, that I started in the 70s that would mitigate this, but you had to tune it so specifically for each person. It wasn't practical. So I got grants from the National Science Foundation, the National Institutes of Health, and developed a second eardrum that doesn't get between the speaker and your eardrum. It seals a vent that would normally dump the bass out, but it keeps the bass and the music inside, keeps the ambient sound outside, but strips these harmful pneumatic pressures out of the equation because it's more compliant than your eardrum. The speaker ends up beating this second eardrum up, and we've studied it at Vanderbilt. And lower volumes sound louder because it no longer prematurely triggers your own stapedius or acoustic reflex where your body turns your volume down without telling you, and you crank it back up and burn your ears out. So we've recently made an inflatable version of that that's kind of a Gore-Tex airbag, and we inflated it in Brian Johnson's ear last year, and we're almost done miniaturizing it so he can use it in life and on stage, and
Wow.
I'll be bringing it to him in February.
So you're helping to restore, at least for that part, a bit of his hearing, because I know that it's been going, right?
Absolutely, and it feels so good. It's almost like Oppenheimer. If radiation turned into fertilizer, he'd feel a lot better. And I've been able to restore hearing function with this bubble. We had a ear, nose, and throat surgeon that had installed some of the first cochlear implants out to the laboratory last month. And he lost his hearing in one ear and had to have his cochlea taken out because he also lost his balance. He couldn't walk. And he listened to these inflatable Adele, I call it, Ambrose diphonic ear lens bubbles that Brian had listened to. And with one ear, he was hearing what he called globally stereo, and sound was moving within his head. So we had a breakthrough. I wish I'd planned it that way, but I just got lucky. And we're able to restore some of the hearing loss that my original devices caused. So I'm feeling a lot better.
Well, that definitely is a blessing. I think even Eric Clapton might be needing a little bit of your services. I guess he came out and said he's losing his hearing a bit.
Yeah, and I haven't called him because I need to get this to Brian, and I promised Brian first. And I believe Brian's talked to him about it. I know he talked to Sting and a whole, Roger Daltrey and a whole other bunch of people, and it's almost finished. So I'm going to give it to Brian first. But I remember doing Wembley with Stevie Wonder in 1982, and Eric came with Pete Townsend. And Stevie introduced me, and they sat right behind me while I mixed. These were the first concerts ever done with in-ear monitors. And the band at first hated it, okay? And Stevie, didn't make me very welcome because he just said in the middle, and we were at SIR Studios. I think this was like 79 or 80, something like that. Our
sponsor, yeah.
Yeah. And he just turned around to the band and said, oh, well, this is real simple. There's no problem here. Anybody that won't use in-ear monitors is fired. And I was like, what? And I'm going out on the road with these guys? I'm going to be hated. And sure enough, I was treated like a redheaded stepchild for the first 2 weeks. But after a couple of concerts, they loved it. And they wanted more pairs of them so we could use them in the studio and use them on the bus. And so when Eric and Pete came in, I was down to my last pair, and I was mixing with it. And they sat behind me, and they said, listen, you got to let us hear this. And I said, okay, look. First song doesn't matter. Go ahead, but you got to give it back after that because I can't. I'm going to be mixing blind.
Yeah, exactly.
And they handed them back and forth and got up and walked around the venue. And I mixed that whole concert without hearing a note. And I walked up to Stevie afterwards to apologize. And before I could say anything, he said, that was the best mix you've ever done. And I shut up real fast. I tell you, I didn't say a word, but
it's all Eric Clapton's fault. Yeah.
Well, they were into it, and it was exciting. So, now I really would like to get together with him, and as soon as I give this first prototype to Brian, I'll be contacting him. And Eric, if you hear this,
Stephen,
call me up.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Stephen, I hate to cut you short. This is we're going to take a break. We'll be right back in a few short minutes.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on intertalkradio.com.
Welcome to Music Gear Talk. Discover the tech that inspires the pros and powers today's music industry.
Yeah, this is Music Gear Talk, and my name is Florentino Buenaventura, and we are on Intertalk Radio Network. You probably know that because you're tuning in right now to it. And tagline, connect to all things music, and we are the leader of this wonderful talk music radio industry. So this mouthful, all that fun stuff. And again, I'd like to take a little give a little shout out to our sponsors, Pitbull Audio at pitbullaudio.com. They just want you to play it loud, and they do that well. And you know, we are going to have our guest here give you the in-ears, protect you from playing it loud, Mr. Stephen Ambrose of Adele Technologies. Stephen, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Florentino. I got to say, you have a fabulous name. I mean, the first name is so cool. And then say your last name again.
Buenaventura. Buena, like the word good in Spanish.
Love that.
And Ventura.
Well, there's not a better California name than that.
I'm totally unoriginal though. It's my grandfather's name. I'm the third. My grandfather, my uncle, and me, and then I've got a couple of nephews that kind of roll around with it. So I'm like in the middle.
So tell me, Florentino, is there going to be a fourth?
You know what? We'll have to ask my girlfriend. We haven't quite made it to the altar yet, so we'll see. I would definitely. I like carrying on the name. I'm very traditional that way, so we'll see. But I definitely use it. You know, I didn't choose it, but I definitely use it. And you know, Stephen Ambrose is a great name as well. You know, always makes me think of wine, Ambrose. So.
Well, I can't argue with that.
So we were talking a bit about your history and the fact that you have created an industry with in-ear monitors, and you know, doing that with Stevie Wonder, and great stories, and you know, empowering you know, just an incredible list of luminaries in the business. So tell us.
I didn't. I have to say, I didn't do it by myself. I mean, Jerry Harvey came along in the '90s, and he raised the bar, and he did a fabulous job of, you know, taking the balance. I started with balanced armatures with Stevie back in 1978, and Jerry has done a fabulous job with it. And all the people in this industry, whether it's Empire Ears, you know, In-Ears, which was just, you know, Kim Fisher was just joined up. He's collaborating with Don Campbell from Persona Medical, and they have the booth called Ear Racers, and I'll be there showing this bubble technology that I showed for Brian Johnson, and showing our new Adele drum, which is a new in-ear monitor that has a variable ambient control on it. It has this second eardrum I talked about.
Yeah.
And come on by the booth and take a listen to these things. We'd love to get your impression on them.
Yeah, in fact, can we give a shout out for the booth number for those folks that are attending now?
You know, yes, as soon as I get it. Let me text my wife. I came to this without my hat, okay?
That was my job to. I know you know so much. I wanted to find one thing that I knew that you didn't know.
Good job. You got me. Very nice.
But I can actually help out with the website. So it's ASIUS technologies.com. I won't spell that out so long, but I think everybody knows how to spell technologies. But the company is ASIUS technologies.com. So make sure you guys go there. Obviously, they'll put that in, and then when you start looking at in the headsets are the Adele headsets, and let's talk a little bit about that. The prices on these are so incredibly reasonable compared to a lot of the other competition. We won't talk about that, but in-ear monitors can go up to $1,500, $2,000 for the fitted stuff. Tell us about your technology and how are you able to get it down to such a reasonable price, and then some of the prices for the sets.
Well, I can't really fault other people for they put an awful lot of quality into these things, and when you get something that has more than 10 drivers, I mean, these drivers, some of them are like $40 a piece, okay? Wow. And I have to say that back in the 70s when I first started, I sold some in-ear monitors for $20,000 a pair. So, but that was when it was, I wasn't gouging people. I would go on tour and I would teach people how to mix, and I was pioneering the whole thing, and there was a lot of work in it. So, but there's still an awful lot of quality and work in it. So, I'm honored to be in this industry with all the people that have contributed to it. Empire Ears uses my Adele technology, as well as now In-Ears, INEARZ. And again, we're at the, I'm trying to get the booth number here. Oh, yeah, it's Hall C, booth 7635, Ear Racers.
You're there with the drums, so I guess that's kind of serendipitous.
That's right. That's right. And we call one of my new inventions the Adele drum because it has this huge second eardrum in it. And, when your stapedius reflex or acoustic reflex is triggered, there's a little bone, the stapedius muscle, that pulls your middle ear bones away from the cochlea. And there's another bone, another muscle called the tensor tympani muscle that attaches to the top of the eardrum and stretches it to tighten it. Okay, just like the wires on a kettle drum or a timpani. Now this is to protect you, but when you seal a speaker in the ear, it's moving like a piston, just like your piston in your car. And and I filmed it. You can go online and you can see it beating up the eardrum visibly. Of course, you would never see the eardrum move visibly at all unless a bomb went off. But when you're using this, I copied this speaker coupling from the hearing aid industry thinking that they had this taped. And I didn't realize that it's causing this over motion of your eardrum. It's making your eardrum hold the speaker still so the speaker doesn't move and have the fidelity it would normally have. Well, I made this second eardrum, and I put a tensor tympani muscle on it in the form of a magnet. It has a magnet, and there's another thumb screw that you can adjust, and it brings another magnet close to that one, and it adjusts the tension of the second eardrum so we don't prematurely trigger yours. And man, I'll tell you, you end up getting a very tremendously open sound with a bass that doesn't have that resonance on it where, when you seal your ears, your voice starts booming in your head. I made these for vocalists. Well, unfortunately, that approach, your voice starts out sounding as bad as possible because that occlusion effect, that booming, nobody likes. So we always turn the volume up over that to get rid of it, okay? Well, this new approach with a second eardrum, whether it's the inflatable bubble or the passive Adele drum, gets rid of that occlusion effect. You don't have that booming in your head on your voice, and you don't have it coloring the bass or coloring the music you're listening to. So you can crank the bass on this, and it's just like turning it up in an auditorium. You don't have it masking the mid-range and the highs like it does in a sealed ear. So I'd love for everybody to hear this and just come on by, see me and Don at the Ear Racers booth, and let us show you this technology, because it also has a control on it where you can open it up and listen to the ambience that you're playing with. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people using my in-ear monitors that end up taking them out. I remember touring with what's his name that did the Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, that wonderful
Otis Redding. You talk about Otis?
Yeah, but Michael Bolton, did such a fabulous version of that. And he would always sing with one in-ear monitor out because he couldn't really adjust the ambience. So now there's no reason to do that, because that's not a good practice. You shouldn't have to do that, but I understand from my first invention that you have to, because it's all wrong, to be honest with you. But, when you seal one ear with an in-ear monitor, it prematurely triggers the acoustic reflex, which also triggers it on the other ear that's open. Because the wiring for the reflex is, they skimped on the wiring. God skimped on the wiring. You trigger one ear, you trigger a boat. Okay, so and if you study it, we looked at this at Vanderbilt, and if you want to study this where you don't trigger both ears at the same time, you have to get patients that have Bell's palsy that are paralyzed on one side of their head. Otherwise, you trigger one, you trigger the other. So. Knowing that this new technology allows you to open up and get the ambience you need and not get this sort of stuck in your head canned sound, which I'm kind of responsible for. And, we're licensing Adele to any in-ear monitor that wants to use it, any in-ear monitor company, because I'm trying to, one, have lower volume sound louder so it doesn't burn out your hearing, and two, have it sound more natural so that you get a performance where you hear everything you need to, and it includes the audience, and you're there in the same room instead of the isolated thing that I kind of started, which, I kind of apologize for.
Well, hey, Stephen, these are quick interviews, man. Half an hour just isn't enough with you, brother. We need to bring you back here, man. We are at the last minute. So just a final thought. What would you like the audience listening in to take away right now? There's an awful lot of people who have made this industry great and made in-ears great. Whatever works for you, that's what you should use. Come try this new technology. Hearing is believing. And if it doesn't work, I want to know, because I learned from that, okay? Definitely. Well, hey, man, thank you very much, brother, for joining us today. We'll be talking to you at the NAMM show as well. This has been Music Gear Talk. Florentino Buenaventura. Stay tuned for the next episode.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it, because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on InterTalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?